Hi friends, you're listening to the Shattered Ceilings podcast with your hosts Stephanie and Adriana. We're here to discuss the importance of mental health from the perspective of two first-generation immigrants. Join in weekly as we dive into important topics such as relationships, parenting, and cultural barriers. Here, we get real and candid as we explore what disrupting the status quo looks like for each of us.
Hey friends, welcome back to Shattered Ceilings podcast. We are so excited to be back with you guys this week, and we have a very special episode for you. Get ready for some remarkable and thought-provoking conversations to take place, and you guys will understand what I mean as soon as I introduce today's guest. Our guest joining us today is none other than the notorious Sebastian Ghiorghiu. Whether you love him or hate him, either way, you have for sure heard of him at this point. Sebastian, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to come and have a chat with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So I first heard of Sebastian when my husband came to me a couple months ago and was like, hey, there's a really successful kid all over social media, and he's from Phoenix and he's Romanian.
Yeah.
And I was like, he told me your name. I'm like, I don't think I know him. But my husband was very proud of you, like for everything that you've accomplished, and especially being Romanian, because our community is very supportive. So we've been obviously following your success in the media and in the finance world. And what you've accomplished in your life up to this point is definitely notable.
Thank you.
But in today's episode, let's stray away a little from what people might know you as.
Okay.
If you're okay with that.
Absolutely.
We want to peel back some of those layers and maybe stereotypes about you that we've seen in the media.
Yeah.
And get to know kind of a different side of you.
Sure.
You cool
Absolutely.
with that?
Absolutely.
Adriana, do you want to talk about how you know Sebastian?
Yeah, it'll be pretty quick. I feel like it's been a few years. I think I did meet you just because you were friends with my brothers.
Yeah.
My brothers would always bring random people.
Oh,
like,
really?
over
I didn't know that.
all the time.
Again, big community, but small.
Yeah. And I think they're like your age, so like 23, 24. I think what was different is they obviously brought you and you probably had a really cool car. And I was like, who's
Probably a
this?
GTR at
Yeah, I
the
was like,
time.
who's this young kid driving a really cool car? And then obviously like with social media, and then I'm friends with Andrea, your cousin.
Mhm.
She's like, he's my cousin. I'm like, okay. So
Small world.
I think it's like, again, being Romanian, just knowing how you find out each other. But I think I did meet you through my brothers. What did stand out when I did meet you, not that your Instagram and everything was like super not humble, but in person you were like this really humble, chill guy. And then I think I followed you on social media and I was like, wow, he has money and he definitely shows that off. But again, it's not a bad thing, but I guess I just wouldn't have expected it.
It's all
Yeah.
marketing.
Yeah, I wouldn't have expected
Exactly.
it if I knew your Instagram before meeting you. So
That's
I thought
good.
that was pretty
And
cool.
I got the opposite impression when I looked at your YouTube videos.
Really?
Yeah, I felt like, I'm like, okay, I feel like he's very, for your age, I was like, he's down to earth.
I mean, I feel like I'm down to earth on social media. Maybe when you met me, I
Before,
wasn't like so.
It was a while
Christian?
ago, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was kind
This
of like
also,
out.
I don't think I watched your YouTube. It was just like the Instagram photos. and I
Instagram was a little
like,
harder because you got to like flex as hard as you can. That's
Yeah.
the Instagram game.
Pretty
That's
you know?
true. So in 60 seconds, go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience.
Yeah, so my name is Sebastian Ghiorghiu. I'm 24, Romanian, obviously. I started I started my business with dropshipping, and then I got into all sorts of crazy things. I've been doing it for like 7 years, self-employed, dropped out of college, and now
You've been doing it for 7 years?
Yeah, like
Wow.
I've like been working for like 7 years, so
That's great.
Now life's great. We're doing really well, and yeah, it's pretty
You
much
were
it.
young, 17.
Yeah, right out of like in high school, I was already working, like with my mind in the right place, and then I dropped out of college like 2 weeks into it. So
Really?
Yep.
We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
I want to know what your parents thought about that.
yeah, they didn't have much of a choice.
We'll
but
get
we
into
can
that
talk about
later.
it.
So I know you talk a lot about your background and where you come from, but for those listening who don't know, give us kind of like a brief rundown of your history.
Of my history, like with my culture, or
Just like your childhood and...
so my parents were born in Romania. They moved here when they were younger than me, and we just grew up very poor. Unfortunately, divorced parents, pretty common these days. But mom was not, she wasn't educated, so she worked as a cleaning lady. She worked at Taco Bell, or not Taco Bell, I'm sorry. She worked at Wendy's for a short period of time, and she took care of old people. She was a caregiver, so she never
My
really
mom
made a lot
worked
of money.
with your mom.
Really?
Small world. Yeah.
Where?
For your aunt.
Oh,
And,
yeah?
and I remember my mom telling me how hard of a worker your mom was.
Yeah,
all the
she's
time.
an incredible worker. She's a super hard worker, but she was never like formally educated. So she wasn't able to like develop high income skills. But like in terms of like physical labor, she's incredible.
Do you feel like you got your work ethic from her?
Not really. I mean, I've seen her work hard, and I guess maybe that helps a little bit, but she never taught me it. So
yeah, I think that's kind of like the narrative for maybe like a majority of our parents. I was actually talking about this morning with my husband, how our parents like knew a lot physical work, and then now our generation is finding different ways to make money.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to be the same with our kids. Like they're probably going to be doing, I don't even know, AI or whatever stuff that we don't understand. So it's just interesting to kind of see how, as the generations, you know, go on, that things change. So
yeah, we evolve and get better for sure.
Yeah, that's true. So do you kind of piggybacking off your childhood, because you talked about how your parents were divorced, do you feel sometimes like you might have missed out on a normal childhood?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can only imagine what a normal childhood is like. So it's like, how can you really feel like you're missing out on something that you don't even know what it's supposed to feel like?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I definitely know that it wasn't normal. And I think about it not too often, but.
I mean, looking back now, you feel like it definitely shaped you.
Yeah, I'd give some credit to it, to the fact that my parents were divorced.
And I want to ask, do you think that you feeling like you kind of missed out on a normal childhood, do you think it will cause you to parent your kids differently?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, it's like, it's hard to say how I would do it differently if I had a father. It's like kind of putting myself in a situation I've never experienced. But I can look at what I lacked and what I wish that I had when I was a kid, and what I wish that I had when I was 18 as a man, and like not knowing what I should do or who I should be like. And like, I'll remember those moments when I have a son that's, 12, 15, 18, even 20. So yeah, definitely.
Something that's cool, and I notice about you, is you're not a person that, I feel like there's two types of people who victimize themselves and who use their story to kind of make themselves a victim, or people who use their story to empower them and kind of rise out of that. And I think that's really cool that you took things that might have been negative and kind of turned it into something that's going to be a positive for you and kind of go the other way. So one thing that I want to say that I think is really cool, you talk about how you sat down with your mom at one point and you kind of talked about how you didn't feel like very much love from her in your childhood.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool, because especially at your age, there's a lot of, people your age who are not that emotionally mature to be able to do that. And like I said, victimize themselves and kind of blame their parents, and that's not going to get you anywhere.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I realized that because I was so angry at my mom for a reason that I couldn't figure out. And I was like, she would do something and like a behavior, and then I would get like, it would warrant like this amount of anger. And then somebody else could do the same thing, and I would be like, okay, I don't care. And then I thought about it. I'm like, why does it make me so angry when my mom does it? It's like, where's it coming from? Why do I have so much anger? And then I just thought about it for like a couple of hours, and then I found the answer, and then I told her.
That is such a great example. Like, even for our audience, maybe that might have, had issues with their parents. I say this all the time. It's not too late, like, unless they've passed away. Like, until then, you still have time to try to make things right and communicate those things to them. But it just takes communication. So let's kind of shift gears. And I want to talk about one of the comments that you made that went viral.
Okay.
That you want your future wife to not have a job and to stay home.
Okay.
So we're not going to go, don't worry, we're not going to go in the other extreme. But I just want to ask, do you feel like that should apply to every family?
No, I don't think so. I think people can, look, there's not like a perfect way to live life. Humans are so different in so many ways that I can't even pretend to even comprehend. And I'm not going to sit here and act like I know everyone in the world and what is best for them in their life, because everyone is different.
That's what sucks, because that's how media portrays you.
Yeah, so yeah, and I know, because the thing is, you say something controversial, and the only thing that gets views is something that arises an emotion in somebody. So therefore you're incentivized to make it as controversial as possible. So you're supposed to get people to look at me and be like, okay, this dude's an idiot. Like, this dude's stupid, because that is a feeling. And that's what's going to make you send it to your friend or share it with your mom or leave a comment. So it is unfortunate, but that's pretty much like the only way that you're going to go viral. Like a lot of people don't really go viral for being extremely influential or positive or like you don't really see it happening. It's usually more controversial stuff.
And what I notice is they don't ask follow-up questions. They're just like, oh, he said this, plaster it as a headline. But you don't, if you go deeper than that, that's not,
Yeah, it's not at all who I am. And the thing is I don't really care. It's not ideal. It's not ideal to have like a lot of people not liking me, but at the same time, they don't even know who they don't like because they're not liking a person that doesn't exist. Yeah. Like in their head, there's like an illusion of me that believes what they think I believe, and that just doesn't exist. Yeah. So how can I be like hurt because it's like
it's not even you.
I'm like, I don't even know who you guys are hating. Like you guys meet me in person, you see what's up.
That's what's crazy is like the power of social media.
Yeah.
And even if you try to portray something, if somebody else puts you in that light. But I wanted to kind of get into this because we talked about it earlier. I think that your beliefs and like the things that you say are truly, they're not going to be accepted by our society because we do live in a very toxic society. And especially here in the States, I mean, people should notice that the reason we're having so many issues, if you can trace it all back, it goes down to the breakdown of family. So I think that's why a lot of what you say is not accepted. And it probably will never be accepted. But also as a Christian, we're called to stand out.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And also I feel like it's a little bit of my job to show like young men that this is the right way to do it, because I know it's the right way to do it. It's the way God intended. Yeah. And I've seen the happiness in families, and I've seen the sadness in people that like abolish the idea of family. And I've seen that myself. So it's like I know that this is a better route for people to take. And sometimes people might be a little bit lost and they might not know what to do. And like somebody that they look up to saying that this is the route you should go on might be like the decision in their life where they actually make a really good choice, and they could like credit that choice to like me saying some crap on TikTok. So. Well,
you're definitely going against the grain. Yeah. And also, I think a lot of maybe even like Romanian boys or guys who watch you, a lot of them probably don't have like fathers that are active in their lives. So they're seeking that. So honestly, I applaud your courage for saying that stuff. And I mentioned to you earlier too, a lot of the things that you say and believe in are things that my husband told me 7 years ago when we got married. Yeah. Okay, I remember a specific experience and I'll share it. It was like 2 weeks after we got married. I was 21. I was very young. He was 24, but when he got married, he knew I want a family. This is what I want. Like he knew how to replicate what a healthy family looks like. He comes from a great loving home. So I remember like 2 weeks after we got married, I was like, okay, it was like 10 p.m. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm getting ready to go to Lux with my friends. And he's like, no, you're not. He's like, I don't want you going to a bar at this hour. And I was like, oh my God, this is nuts. Like what? You're controlling, you're blah, blah, blah.
Like, what did I sign up for?
So these things that you say are things that we implemented in our marriage. And 7 years later, like the fruits of that, we have a very healthy and a strong marriage.
Yeah, I'm honestly surprised he waited until 2 weeks into your marriage to tell you that.
That was the first time
like, I'll say that. I'll say that on the first date.
Yeah.
Like I'll be like, this is, by the way, these are the boundaries. If you cross them,
So we got married after 3 months of knowing each other. So it was very fresh. Yeah. Things even my husband watches, he's like, yeah, like that's what I agree with. That's what I think it takes to have a healthy marriage. But like I said, you're going against the grain of society, so it's not going to be accepted.
Yeah, and I mean, who cares?
Yeah,
whatever.
Exactly.
I know I'm doing the right thing, and it's like. You said courage, like it's good that you have the courage or the bravery to go and say that on the internet. It's like, it doesn't exist. You know what I mean? Like the internet, I shut off my phone and it's gone. Like, it doesn't matter. Like these people can't hurt me. They leave a comment. It doesn't matter. Like I still have a great relationship with my mom now. I still have brothers. I still have love.
You know who you are. Yeah, and you know what's real.
McLaren, money in the bank, and a promising future. It's like I don't care.
Right.
It's fine. You
Keyboard
guys can hate
pirates.
me. and I know there's a bunch of people that hear it, Romanians, and look up to it, and non-Romanians too, and dudes that are like, yeah, like because of you, like you inspire me to keep going. So it's like, okay, I do it for you guys.
Right.
Screw everyone else.
I kind of did like some research because I wanted to talk about that, how you said about you want your wife to stay home. Yeah. And now that we dive deeper into it, obviously there's more to that. But so I kind of did some research, and what's crazy is in 1970, 38% of moms were in the workforce here in the States, and now it's actually 72%. We need to figure out why that number has doubled in such a short amount of time. And I think it has a lot to do with the toxic feminist agenda that began to rise in this country in the 70s.
Yeah.
So people don't want to talk about that for some reason. It's like such a taboo subject. Like, oh my gosh, if you're talking about, just like I think there's toxic masculinity, there's 100% toxic femininity in this country. And like I said, just like people love to attack you and others in the media, we need to talk about the dangers of toxic femininity too, because I'm not against supporting women's rights, but I am against like this toxic feminist agenda, which directly attacks the nuclear family and traditional values. So that's kind of what I think about that. And if you look at our society, like I said, the breakdown of a society trace it back and it begins to when the breakdown of a family occurs. So kind of going back to like working moms, the truth is you're replaceable at your job, but you're irreplaceable at home as a mother.
That's well said.
And I think people don't kind of realize that. And I think when we can understand, like us as moms, the importance of being with our kids during those primary years, Romanians have a saying, 7 ani de acasă. Have you guys heard that before?
7 ani de acasă.
Yeah, it's basically saying the 7 years at home. So if you see somebody who's like a child who's rude or disrespectful, you're like, oh, they don't have the 7 years at home. 7 ani de acasă. They weren't home with their mom to teach them these things. There's a reason that that saying exists.
Yeah.
So I just kind of see it in my life. Like for me, nothing beats the smile on my son's face when he walks in the door from school and sees me like there waiting for him, whether I'm cooking or whatever. As crazy as his school day could be, like he knows that when he gets home, his mom is there waiting for him. And I think that that gives a child an incredible sense of safety and security. And that's really where it starts.
Yeah, absolutely.
So getting into this whole thing, I think people don't look deeper into it. And I can say that for me it was important because it's something that I didn't grow up with. So that's why, I noticed, okay, this is what I was lacking. This is what, like you said, you want to do differently with your kids. So does that mean that every woman should be a stay-at-home mom forever? Honestly, I don't think so.
No, definitely not.
This is my view on it. The Bible says that for everything, there's a time and a season. So 5 years ago when my son was born, my husband and I decided the best thing would be for our family would be for me to stay home and raise the kids until they go to school. It was like a non-negotiable. Like that was like right off the bat, this is what we're going to do. It's the best thing. His mom stayed home and raised the 5 kids. She was home the whole time. But not only did that provide like a stable starting point for my kids in life, but it also took a huge weight off my husband's shoulders so that he could focus on establishing his career. And people see that so negatively for some reason, as if I'm like oppressed that I stay home. But if you think about how much of we are there for our husbands to be their helpmate. So it's like, if you look at it like that, that's my job. And like for what I can add to the marriage to help my husband succeed.
Yeah. I would argue that I think it's more oppressive to be forced to go to a job than to be home with your beautiful babies and also like kind of do what you want to do. Yeah. It's like you literally have more freedom.
Yeah, that's what my husband says.
It's kind of ironic.
Yeah. So, but then kind of that changed for us because now both my kids are going to be in school full time. So my husband we sat down last year and this is how it was for us. I felt like, okay, this is what I need to do for my kids. 100% I want to do it willingly. It's the most important thing. But now that they're going to be in school, I felt like I was losing my identity. Like I remember a specific instance when one of his cousins came over and he's like, so what do you do in your free time? And I'm like, I don't have free time. I'm a mom. And he's like, no, that's like not normal. He's like, that's not okay. Like you should still have hobbies or something. And I got so mad. I stayed up the whole night. I couldn't sleep. And I realized I don't know what to talk to people about anymore. Like other than being a mom. And that's great, but you cannot lose yourself in that because it's going to be so toxic to you and to your kids. I see a lot of moms who become very codependent on their children and then it's hard for them to detach. Like if we realize that our kids, yes, we're parents for our whole lives, but it's our job until 18 to prepare them for society. Yeah. And then when they're ready to spread their wings and fly, but then that's, I think a lot of moms, when they only have their identity in their kids, then they're like, oh my gosh, first of all, they are not like spending time with their spouse anymore, spending time on themselves. I
was going to say, I think that would even be harmful for your relationship with your husband.
Yeah.
If you like 100%. Are just way too much into your kids.
So kind of that's where I was at. And I honestly, like until I had that talk with my husband, I didn't even realize how like I I was like frustrated, but I didn't know why. And then I kind of realized it's because I feel like I'm like in this box right now. And even though, like I said, I loved it, but I'm like, okay, now like it's a different season and it's a different time in our life and in our family. So he's like, okay, you've been home for the last 7 years, like supporting me. Now, if like I feel established in my career to where if you want to do something, like go ahead and do it, you know. But I kind of wanted to like talk about that different perspective too, because just because you're a mom for a season, like a stay-at-home mom for a season, that doesn't mean that has to be for the rest of your life. There's, I think, a time for everything. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. You definitely need like something like to source fulfillment from in your own life, like ways to express yourself and ways to grow. So, and you know, being a mom, I'm sure it's exhausting. I'm sure it's a full-time job. But even then you need to make time for yourself, which is probably most important. And then you also need to make time for your husband and stuff too. So, I mean, I don't know. I'll never know, but
you'll see for sure. Things change so much, like when you're married and when you have kids, but if you know what you want going into it and you are on the same page as your wife, that's the most important. Yeah. Who cares what anybody else says? And,
not me.
Yeah, and that's good. What sucks is like just, you know, how the Romanian community, it's true. It's very like, if you do this, then everybody has to do the same. All of our lives have to look the same.
Very herd mentality.
All of our timelines have to be the same.
That's okay. I mean, I'll argue with any of the Romanians, but...
Yeah. Yes, the first couple years of your child's life, first off, you're not going to get that back. And if you don't realize the importance of giving that stability to your kids the first couple years, you're going to regret it later on.
I think I would agree with that. Yeah, I would agree for sure.
So
I love hearing all this because I'm like going to be a mom soon. So I'm like, okay, it's different hearing it. I know it'll be different like walking it. But I think it's so important to have like the same mindset. Like before marrying James, I was like, what do you want in life? And when it matches up, it's like, okay, we're unstoppable.
Yeah.
You wouldn't marry someone that wants you to work if you tell them like, I'm going to be at home. So I'm thankful I'm on the same mindset as my husband.
That's good. That's important.
I did realize, because obviously I got married not late. I was 25, but in the Romanian community, that's like old for a girl. But I realized being at home, I guess we had a pretty like healthy childhood. My dad was working. He was maybe working too much because he was like a truck driver. So I know he was gone from like Sunday night to Saturday. We would see him at church and he was gone again. Obviously, as a kid, you don't understand like, why is my dad always gone?
Interesting.
But I also didn't know it was normal to like maybe see him more often. So I'm happy that my dad like sacrificed his time for the family. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And I feel like we had again a pretty normal childhood. You don't know what's normal until you grow up and talk to your friends and family. But for me, I remembered seeing my dad work so hard that like I got inspired by him, that I was like, that's so cool that he made a life for us. Like we grew up poor and now like he made a name for himself and he can stay home now while he's working and he's just working smarter. So when I was like 18 out of high school, I didn't want to get married and have kids. I was like, no, like I want to make a name for myself and I want to like, I had more of the entrepreneur spirit, which I think is always going to be a part of me. So I was like, I want to go to school, and all my sisters did it. And my dad was like, no, like you need to find a husband and get married. And I was like 18 and I was like, no, like I want to go to school. So I'm happy they supported me. And I did what I wanted to do. Like I got into real estate. I did my skincare business. Like I felt so accomplished. And then as soon as you find the guy like that you love and want to get married, I was like, I'm not working anymore. Like, screw this.
That's funny.
I feel like there's a season for everything. I'm happy. What would I have been doing for the last 4 or 5 years? So I'm happy I did work and I'm like proud of myself. But now I'm like, okay, this is my time to like be married, like stay home with my family and like be a mom. Yeah. So it's hard to tell young girls because I think our culture also tells you like be a boss, like hustler mentality, and everyone's supporting you.
But then the Romanian community says the opposite. So it's very confusing.
It is very confusing, I think, as a girl.
Yeah.
I think I also, because I love listening to Jordan Peterson, and he talked about how most young 20-year-olds, their career is their life. Like if you talk to every girl in their 20s, like that's what they want to look forward to. As soon as I think you hit 25 plus, they're like, I want to be a stay-at-home mom and have kids.
Yeah. Well, I think the only reason that the career is their life is because that's what they see and that's what they're told on the internet.
100%.
And I don't think most of these girls, this is a bet, and you could say I'm wrong, but I don't think most of these girls have ever taken a day to sit down with no phone or computer and just actually genuinely think about what they want to do in their life.
Our kids are growing up. A lot of us work from home now. Like you said, your dad was always gone. Like my husband works from home 24/7. So like, it's really interesting how they're growing up. It's so different than how we grew up, like with their mom and their dad. It's definitely a blessing. But then it also into that, like playing into the hustle mentality is like knowing when you need to take time away too. Cause it's very damaging if you're just 24/7.
Yeah, I think that's also like that could be a dangerous position for men. I'll speak for myself, but I think most men would agree. Like sometimes we really, really need to just be alone, like completely
Oh yeah,
alone.
that's my husband.
And I think that's just normal. And that's why like we go to the gym, like the guys that go to the gym, it's like going to the gym is like sometimes the best part of the day because they just have no one to talk to, nothing to deal with. And we're always stressing. We're always thinking about stuff. And then when we come home, we want to make sure our girlfriends or our wives are okay. And then you have kids and stuff. So it's like, sometimes we just really want to be alone. And if you're working 24/7 from home, that kind of puts you in like a tricky situation. You got to figure out a way to do it. And now I feel
bad for him. And
no.
Because
I don't want to make you feel bad.
No, because now I'm seeing that because sometimes at the end of the day, we're constantly going the whole day. And then at the end of the day, when the kids are in bed, I'm like, okay, well, this is our time together. But he's like, I need to shut my brain. You don't understand. He's like, even if it's just reading or whatever, he's like, I need to shut my brain off.
Yeah.
So, and then I'm like offended because I'm like, you're going to spend time with me.
So
but now
that's the
I
thing.
see
That's
that.
the thing I see too. It's like, that's nothing against you.
Yeah.
That's nothing against you. It's
I
just,
realize it now.
it's a lack of something else that is completely unrelated.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know anything about your relationship. So I'm not going to, but in my experience, that's what it was. Like sometimes I just need to be alone. So.
We're going to talk about work-life balance. I truly believe like entrepreneurs are like born like that. Like if you are born with that mindset, this is my opinion, you will always be looking for something else. Like that's how he is.
Yeah.
I'm like, can you just like chill? Like, but his mind never stops. So
I think, okay, so again, not all guys are like this, but there are guys out there that have like that hunter's mentality. They always want more, and they want to collect resources and protect and provide. That's just our limbic system. That's just our monkey brain.
It's crazy.
That's
like
just
I'm
what we
like,
want.
you're wired like this. Like there's nothing I can do.
So I think men are born with the drive, the instinct to like want to create an environment to like build a safety egg, like a nest.
I think I sometimes have to, him finding work-life balance, it's difficult for him. And I kind of sometimes have to be like, okay, like we need to put it away. Like it's family time. Like, so it's constantly like kind of a back and forth. So it's because you're split into so many parts. Like you'll see when you have kids and you're married, like now you have to give some of that time to like your kids too and your wife. And he's a very involved dad and he's 100% a family man. So I think sometimes he has that internal struggle within himself too. Yeah. Cause it's like, yes, it's good to have that drive, but then it's like, do you have even time to enjoy it? Like, I ask him, I'm like, we need to make that time. Like you need to make that margin to be able to like actually enjoy what you're doing. Yeah. So for sure. Yeah.
I would predict in my life that if for me to be happiest, I'd probably have to spend like 80% of my time in seeking of what I want, like my mission, my life, and then spend 20% like with my family. That's where I think I'd be happiest. Yeah. I could not be like a stay-at-home dad and play with my kids all day long, every day. I would go crazy. And I don't think girls are the same. I think we're different. Yeah. I need time alone. I need time to build, to work on myself. I need time to literally like quote unquote hunt. And if I'm not, and I say this because I've been just through the relationships I've been in my life, I've been through a few serious relationships. It's like when I'm with my girlfriend all day long, I just want to get away from her. Yeah. So it's like, and when I'm working all day and then at the end of the day, I just want to be with my girlfriend.
Yeah. And it depends too. Like he's the kind of person where he loves working from home. Like he's like, for me, taking the kids to school, he's like, that's something that I want to do every day. Yeah. Sometimes I feel bad for him because I'm like, you're constantly going like.
I got to meet this guy.
I don't think it stops. My dad's 50 and he's doing multiple businesses. And my mom's like, you said you're going to retire soon. He's like, this good opportunity just came up.
Oh yeah, it's constantly that back and forth. But what I wanted to say is you knowing that about yourself is so important. Like if you know yourself before you get into a relationship, it makes life so much easier. Yeah. Because you know this is what I have to offer. This is what I want or don't want in a girl. So if kind of, do you want to ask the follow-up question that we have for him?
What qualities do you look for in your future spouse?
It's a great question. So I don't want to say like the obvious stuff, because obviously loyalty, but that means so much more than just the word loyal. That means so much more than not cheating.
Yeah.
Loyalty is a lot different. So if I had to say like the most important thing that I look for is the same amount of passion, and also the mindset that it's me and you as a team against the world. And so as a team, if we're going to be successful, any time that we waste like with friction between us is just stupid. It's just not, it's pointless. And I understand that there's going to be arguments, and of course, but we have to have those arguments with the mentality in the back of our mind that at the end of the day, we are still on the same team.
We just talked about
no
this.
matter what.
Yep.
So like, I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to be mean to you. I don't want to like do things that make you dislike me. It's you and me against the world. That's really, really important for me.
It seems to me like you're a really honest person.
Yeah. No, I don't see why more people aren't. You should be extremely honest.
Especially with your spouse or with the person you're going to be with forever.
Yeah, I won't bring this up, but I displayed like brutal honesty with the current girlfriend that I'm in a relationship with right now when I first met her. And that brutal honesty, I remember she asked me a question, and I was sitting in the car and I was thinking about it, and I was like, okay, I love this girl more than anything. I want to marry her. And she asked me this question, and I was like, and she asked me a few other questions, and I was like, if I'm honest with her right now, there's a good chance that she's never going to talk to me again. And I was like, so I could do that, and I love this girl and I want to be with her, or I could lie to her. And I'm like, is that what I want to do? And I was like, okay, I'm just going to be honest, because it's like, this is who I am. You take it or leave it.
And you want something real, because if you would have chosen in that moment to just lie to her, do you know how many marriages are like that?
And a lie always leads to another lie.
Yeah.
Another important quality for me is okay, this is a little bit controversial. I've done very, very like well for myself. I've guided myself through life. I trust my own judgment, and I need a girl that is going to like be there and kind of suggest things and kind of be like a consultant to me. Okay. Not like a co-partner, not like no, we're not doing it this way. Like, you kind of have to like let me lead in a way.
That's controversial.
That's more of the controversial stuff, but that's important to me.
It is, but that's what's gonna lead to success. Because when I married my husband, I saw his potential. And so every major decision that we've taken over the last 7 years, I followed his lead.
Yeah. And that doesn't necessarily be girl having to follow like the guy. There just has to be a leader, like a final CEO in the relationship, a final leader. And that could be a girl too. If a girl is marrying a guy and the girl is like smarter and both parties know that, and the guy's like, okay, you're much smarter than me, the last decision should ultimately be left up to you. I think that it's just, you need to have that like final say. Okay, we're going to have to do it this way. Well, otherwise it's too much this.
I also don't even want that responsibility on my shoulders.
Most girls don't. Yeah,
I'm like, you're good.
So girls literally don't like, and that goes back to what we were saying. It's like some of these girls think that they do because they see other girls saying and pretending that they do, but in reality, they've never even spent an hour alone thinking about it. And it's like, if you actually thought about it, it's like, okay, as a girl, do you really want to like internalize that stress of like having a huge decision and having to weigh the two options for weeks at a time? Do you want to stress about that? Yeah. Probably not.
Yeah. Or if it turns out bad. Yeah. But on the other side of that, do you feel like more girls would be, people are going to hate this word, submissive or submit to their spouses if more men were actual men?
Absolutely.
Like that's a huge...
It all starts with men. It all starts with men, because you can't be like a weak man or like not have any of the things that you need to have to be able to lead in a relationship and still try to do that. Yeah. You know, you can't be like, it's just not going to work. No girl is going to follow you. No girl is going to trust your judgment if you haven't proven yourself to yourself and other people. Yeah. And so it really starts with men. And yeah, if there's guys watching this and they have nothing to show for it and they're like, you need to be submissive to me, it's like, for what? Why?
Yeah, that's like
why would
controlling and very insecure.
Yeah. But for me, it's like, so it's a different way for me because it's like, okay, I've gotten myself here. I trust my judgment. I've done well. I'm going to keep going. You want to join? Come join.
Right.
And if you don't, then don't.
Well, that's biblical. I mean, men are supposed to be under God, and the women, that's biblical.
Yeah.
Because the man is supposed to obviously listen to God's will and calling and make that decision.
I think it's in Ephesians, right?
Yeah.
So and a lot of people reference that verse of like, wives submit to your husbands and husbands honor your wives. But there's also a verse that says that husbands should love their wives more than the temple of their own body. So it's like, it's also biblical for a man to love his wife more than himself.
And it sounds so simple, but like, why is it so complicated?
I don't
like,
read the Bible, guys.
Yeah, for us,
it's not that hard.
Yeah, and like I said, comes back to you knowing yourself too, and knowing your spouse. Because a lot of people, you're making that covenant forever. Like for me, I saw 100% how much he loves me. Like through every season, it's like it's easy for me to like follow, you know, in those big decisions. So
yeah,
it's simple,
and you have to find a guy that's willing to do that. And, you know, I'll give you girls credit. It's really, really hard, but I'm doing my best out here, guys.
Yeah.
This is why I make these TikToks. Like I'm trying, you know, and it's hard, but you're absolutely right.
You did say it does start with the man, which I do agree with, but the only thing I'm saying is because I feel like I related to this is there's always going to be two roles, one masculine, one feminine.
Yeah.
And there are girls that can be more masculine than the guys that they're with.
Yeah.
And I saw myself always more independent. And that's just how I grew up more. Just, this is who I am. And I realized when I dated guys, I was more, you know, like wearing the pants in the relationship. But that's just how my personality was. And usually when you are in your masculine, you're going to attract very feminine guys. And when I was in these past relationships, if the guy's not going to stand up and just kind of be okay, like just taking the role, which even if they're not okay, they should verbalize it, but they never did. It failed because it wasn't a good relationship. I know some girls are okay being in their masculine and the guy's okay being in their feminine, but I think it's healthy for the girl to be in their feminine, the guy to be the masculine. I know that's also controversial, but I don't care because I saw it in my own life. And when I married James, I realized through therapy and like being aware, like, wow, it's so easy for me to be independent and not need someone. And it took a lot of like healing to realize like, I need to be more feminine. This is like what's God like called me to do. And like the roles are reversed with him. And I married the guy and I'm just happy because he, being a leader, made me realize like, wow, I don't have to stress about all these decisions. And like, he was the first guy that was like, hey, I made reservations. I'm like, oh my God, this is the first time I didn't have to like take lead. So I still catch myself very easily, like wanting to do something. And James is like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, just relax. Like, it's fine.
That's controversial too to talk about, but it's really important.
But I always tell younger girls, like, I think it's so important that you aren't super, like, you can be independent, but no, like, your guy is going to be the one that you're going to follow.
Yeah. And to me, a husband who says like, no, a husband who is controlling like that, to me is not masculine. He's actually insecure.
Attractive.
Yeah. That's such a whole other topic.
It is. And again, it's very controversial.
It is, especially in the Romanian community.
Yeah.
So,
another question. I know we're trying. Another question is, where do you see yourself in 10 years?
So I'll be 34 and a half. Probably like 3 or 4 kids. I'll have my like house up in the Pacific Northwest and probably a house in Arizona. Yeah. Myself in terms of family, in terms of finances.
Everything, doing the same thing?
No, I don't know. See, I've always kind of hustled, so I don't know like what businesses or what opportunities will come my way. So I can't possibly predict it, but
it's true.
I want to build and develop my own school that I want to send my own kids to.
Oh, that's cool.
That's like a new way of schooling children that is completely different than the way it is now because I'm not sending my kids to schools. So I'll be working on that a lot, but I think by the time I'm 34, I have so much money, so it won't really matter. I'll be heavily into real estate, like developing crazy commercial buildings.
Still working a lot?
Yeah, definitely. Working as much as I work now, like I don't work that much. I work like 30 to 40 hours a week, and it's some days are like 10 hours a day, and some days are like, I'm not going to work today, or I'm going to respond to emails and texts, and that's it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm not a crazy workaholic. Like if I was, you'd probably become a billionaire. So at some point, but I don't care. I don't care to reach 100 million. I don't care to reach 1 billion. I just want to work because I enjoy it. It's fun. And I want to be smart.
Yeah, that's very important. I think a lot of people, actually I've heard of examples where people get like so caught up in a number and they're like, by this age, I need to make this much. That is so like exhausting, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, if you set a goal like that in your mind, I think you're going to work harder to achieve it. And I think the probability of you achieving that goal goes up if you put a lot of stress on yourself to accomplish it. But I'm 24. I've done well enough. I know like if you're just smart now, money compounds and I'll be fine forever. So I'm not putting a lot of pressure on myself. I just kind of want to just enjoy life and do whatever I want to do. But some people are like that. I mean, my cousin, I won't say his name. I don't think he cares, but I just want to keep his privacy. He also grew up poor. You guys probably even know him, but he is in the Airbnb game and he would do like Airbnb arbitrage where he rents apartments and leases it out. He'd make cash flow and then he'd buy a building and then he'd make cash flow and then buy a building and then renovate it. And he kept on doing it. He grew up poor. He has over $5 million worth of real estate and he's 1 year older than me. And he started a couple of years ago. And he wants to be a billionaire before he's 30. And I think he's going to do it.
That's awesome.
And it's like this dude, he's never done dropshipping. Or I think he's probably tried it, but like, it's just crazy to see. It's like, there's so many ways to become successful out there. But I was with him last night at In-N-Out and he was telling me, he's like, I want to be a billionaire before I'm 30. And he told me how he's going to do it. And I'm like, power to you.
Right. As long as you have the plan. And
go for it.
Yeah.
That'd be incredible.
Yeah. That's cool. Is he married or no?
He's married.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. That's for sure. Yeah. But I see the example I was talking about. I see like when you only see that number, you don't see anything else like on the side. And this person has a family and their priorities are completely upside down. And I'm like, that's not good either because you can have as much money, but then eventually you're going to be paying a lot to fix what you messed up now. Into our next question too.
What, work-life balance? Yeah, I know we kind of talked about earlier. Do you think work-life balance exists and what does that look like to you?
Yeah, it definitely exists. For me, like I said, I want to be working more time than I'm like being in a pleasurable thing. So I don't really know, like I'm not married. My girlfriend lives out of state currently. So I talk to her on the phone at the end of the night. So for me, it's like my life right now, I don't think I can effectively answer your question because I work a lot and then I go to the gym and I go fight and then I hang out with friends and I go out to dinner or something. So most of my life, I'm living life like kind of like I'm single. But
it'll be different once you're married.
Yeah. So like, see, I don't really know what it's like to like have a wife and have a house with her and come home to her. So but
that's fair.
I'm sure I'll figure it out. You can ask me that question in a couple of years.
I know.
I'll figure it out. Let you know. We'll see what I come up with.
Yeah. Obviously you've been working, you said, for like 7 years and you've made a name for yourself and you're super successful. Do you feel pressure to just continue on with that success?
Absolutely.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. That's the dangerous thing with social media exacerbates this problem, but you always kind of want to outdo yourself. You always want to go harder because that's just how it is. Like if you make 10K in a day and you show everyone and everyone's like, wow, that's crazy. And then you make 5K in a day.
You're like, what's wrong?
Everyone's like, well,
especially Romanians.
Whatever. Which 5K a day is crazy. That's a lot of money. But if you make 150,000 in a day and then you make 50K in a day, it's like the same thing. It's like, well, okay, well, you've done way better. So you always kind of want to outdo yourself. And there always is a pressure to always go bigger. But it's good. I mean, it's gasoline. Yeah. It's fuel. So it's good. Yeah. You know, you can see that as a bad or a good thing. So yeah. It's good.
I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, it is good. And I feel like
it doesn't like destroy your mental health.
Yeah. It depends what kind of a person you are. Yeah. So that's good that you take it like that in a positive way. I feel like you're like the poster child in the Romanian community. Do you feel that?
Yeah, I feel like I'm the golden boy.
Feel that pressure?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I get that a lot. Like people at church, like everyone's so happy to see me and they're like, it's like I'm like the mascot. Yeah, I feel that. I feel that sometimes, but I don't like to talk about it.
That's good that you don't let it
like get to you.
Yeah.
I feel like I understand that. I'm aware of it, but I don't like to talk about it because it makes me feel like I'm bragging. It makes me feel like I don't want to flex. Like I don't. I feel bad flexing.
Yeah. What grounds you?
What do you mean by that?
Like what keeps you like
Like humble?
Is it your mom?
No, my mom is a show off.
All Romanian moms.
I bought her a Rolex and she's like, "Did you see my watch?" to all her sisters. And I bought her a Porsche too, and she's like always flexing it.
Yeah. Well, she's also probably proud because
yeah, I'm sure. But I think what keeps me humble, so I think when people overly flex, I think that they have something to prove. I think it comes from a little bit of an insecurity. I just don't feel the need to flex. Yeah. I know I have it. I know I have a sick life. I have good hair and fast cars and whatever. So it's like, I don't need anyone else to believe it because I believe it. I have it. I don't need to prove anything to anyone. Maybe that's what it is, but I like the idea. I like the idea of a man that can flex, like has the ability to really flex and to just like keeps himself at the same level as other people. I like the way that looks on a man. So that's why.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great way to put it. I agree with you, especially when it comes to like money. One thing I noticed, and this is something like that me and my husband, I feel like always we're on the same page. If like all your money is stripped away from you, like what kind of person are you really? Like what's your for me, I can appreciate somebody's hustle and be like, man, that's so cool, good for you. But like, if you're a crappy person, like I don't respect you.
It doesn't even matter.
Yeah,
it's like, a really, really beautiful girl is like, it has the worst attitude ever. Yeah, or she's just like a total B, and you're just like, well, that sucks. Like, why are you doing that?
That's cool that you obviously have that good character to back that up. So
yeah, it's like if you like a metaphor to it would be like if you see a professional fighter, like a UFC like world champion. One of the most dangerous dudes on the planet could kill anyone. And he's just like the most gentle, nice guy. Yeah. That's a cool thing to see. Yeah. It's a cool thing to see. Because you're like, what he's capable of, but he's still kind. And that is like I think that's a pillar of masculinity. So maybe that's what it is.
I agree with you. Yeah.
That's a good point. I also know growing up, I was always taught that like, everyone's always like, oh, money changed this person, or like, oh, if you get too much money, you're going to be evil in this. It's like, my dad always said money shows you who you really are. So if you give a really crappy person $1 million, they're just probably going to blow it off or who knows what. If you give someone that's been super generous, they're going to give and they're going to like be fruitful. That's a good point. I always see that, like, hearing as a kid, you don't get it. But the older I get, I'm like, okay, this family has money and this family has money, and they're completely opposite of like how they are with the money that they have.
Also, and I've heard that, and I'm going to say something. Ironically, the people that say that don't have any money. So it's like they're saying like, oh, money, having this makes you this, but they have never had this. Yeah. It's like saying like, you really like salmon and it's really good, but you've never even tasted it. Yeah. It's like, how can you possibly even say that? Because you don't know. Right. But it does amplify who you are. And again, I'm not one to like list off the things that I've done, but I've done like a lot of donations and a lot of stuff that not even my girlfriend knows. So just a lot of things. And
that's good. Yeah. It's hard because I think being in the Romanian community, we're not raised with that mentality to like not flex. Like if somebody has money, like everybody needs to know. At least that's, I think, what I've seen growing up. Yeah. And it was like interesting for me too to see people around me that money changed them, and I was like, it's easy then to relate money to being something negative, but then like I had to have like the like thought process where I was like, okay, no, wealth, like God blesses people with wealth. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. It's like what you do with that and what kind of a person you are. So just because you have money doesn't mean that you're going to change into, being a bad person. So
definitely not. No, I think
that's cool. You're a good example, Sebastian, for sure, of that.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, we have another personal follow-up question with that. Do you feel like a part of your drive for success has to do with wanting to prove something to your dad?
That's a great question. And the truthful, because I thought about this, the truthful and honest answer is no. I don't feel like I have anything to prove to my dad. I never did. Or to my mom. I never felt like I didn't care. And my parents were very absent, so I didn't really care. It's probably because I grew up I just didn't like my childhood. I didn't like the things that I had to go through, and I didn't like the feelings that I had that I saw other people not having to deal with. And I just didn't want my kids to go through the same thing. I didn't want them to have that pain. I don't know why. I wanted to alleviate that for my future self and my family. That's where most of it comes from, honestly. And I genuinely, even today, I still don't care about proving anything to my parents.
Well, I'm sure much less now that you're older.
Yeah, it happened. It happened like a year ago. Cause like, you know, like you guys know this feeling that I'm talking about. Maybe everyone watching does, but it's like when you're with your parents and like they say something, you like want to agree, or you want to like kind of make sure that you feel accepted to them, and you kind of want to cater to them and make sure that they like you, and you want to be someone that they hope you are. I was like that with my father because it was always kind of awkward going back to visit him. I'd see him like once a year, and like he would say something and I would like try to make a conversation or try to like change my words to like make him like me more a little bit because he's my father.
Yeah, of course.
And the last time I went to see him, that was just not there. It was completely gone.
The dialogue.
It was better. It was better than it's ever been.
Yeah.
Because I had like an honest conversation. I was just like myself. If he didn't say anything, I wouldn't say anything. I'd be like, okay, I don't care. Yeah. And then I was curious about something. I was like, what did you do? Like, what was high school like in Romania? And I just started talking to him. He told me all these stories about how he used to be like a boxer. He used to box in Romania. And I was like, what? Are you serious?
You didn't know?
I was like, bro, I thought like you were lame. He's like, that's dope. You're a boxer. That's cool. But no, he told me all these stories about his father and what they did and his mom and all this stuff. And I was like, that's cool. I just treated him like a stranger, like a normal person. Because he is a normal person. So
that's what facilitates like actual, genuine, healthy relationships, I think. When you like are able to like just be yourself and be like, okay, this is what it is. Yeah. So that's good. And that's important.
Yeah, that's where it comes from, is like the confidence in who you are. And I think, again, that's a big problem today. These people don't know who they are. And well, okay, how do you figure out who you are? Well, you have to sit down and you have to think about it, and you have to be alone. You have to gather a lot of information so that you can make a good decision and be like, okay, I want to do this. And you have to have a strong reason as to why you want to do this. Or like, I believe in this, and this is why I believe in this, because this person does, and this is what they stand for. And this is just what's important to me based on my life. Yeah. Like for me, having a family is really important because I've never had one. So for a girl out there that has had a perfect family and 7 brothers, and all she wants to do is become a millionaire for whatever reason, then maybe that's the best thing for her to do. Maybe, maybe she's the one that's getting pissed at me because I'm saying you should stay at home and be a mom, and her mom was a terrible person. So she's like, I'd never want to do that. Okay, do what is best for you. But that's the important part, is figuring out who you really are. So.
And one thing I want to mention, I noticed, I watched the video with your mom. I noticed that you're curious and you ask questions about like your parents and how they were raised and stuff like that. That's something that like young people don't do. And if you don't, I feel like, especially us as Romanians, because like, especially first generation, our parents, we've talked about this, coming from Romania, we like don't know anything really about their upbringing, because all we know is, okay, they have this many brothers or whatever. But if you don't like dig and ask those questions, how are you going to know, like, how are you going to make those connections that your parents were like this because of that? So it helps you to be able to heal too from things that they might have done. And if you don't know where you came from, how do you know who you are? Yeah. So I think that's cool too, that you ask those questions. That's important.
It's genuinely interesting. It's actually really, really cool to see where they come from and what they have to live like.
Yeah,
so.
That's cool.
It takes a lot of maturity though to like sit down and talk to your parents about adult things.
Yes. Really? Especially when you didn't have that, kind
growing up, you don't have that role model and example. Like, I'm close to my parents, but sometimes, and I'm like married now, and I'm still like, is this awkward if I ask my parents this? Because we never talked about it. Yeah. So it's like a different intimacy type thing.
Especially because they're very closed off, a lot of them, about their upbringing. I mean, it's traumatic growing up under communism. So
yeah, I think a lot of the first gen's parents are like stone, like petrified.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly. There's a lot of stuff they went through that we probably have no idea that they went through that stuff.
Yeah, yep. But it's curious. That's why I ask.
That's good. Good for you. I think that's important.
Yeah, I am curious. Do you feel like growing up in like the Romanian, especially like Christian community, not that like did it push you, or like do you feel like that changed where you are now, like of how successful you are? Or you feel like if you were born in a different community and not with Romanians, that would have changed anything? Like, were there any pros or cons dealing with that? Because I feel like every Romanian deals with, at least for me, a time where you're like, I'm over the Romanian community. I want to get away from these people because they're judgeful or toxic.
I'm guessing here, I don't think that it had anything to do with financial success at all. Whether or not I grew up in a Romanian community or not. But there's a lot of variables that you get from having a Romanian community, a Christian Romanian community that's good, that I really like. And there's some bad stuff as well. But I'm thinking about it, and I just don't think I can attribute any of the good or bad stuff to my success financially.
Yeah.
So
that's good. That's interesting. I was always curious because I feel like people with the community that either like drives them to like, again, not prove their point, but like to have that support, or it just doesn't affect them. Yeah, like I said, most of the drive just came from the fact that I had to be in all these terrible situations that were not ideal. Yeah. And whether I was in Arabic, American, Romanian, whatever community, I think it'd still be the same. No change, you. Yeah. And even if you, I like thought of something. Even if you didn't grow up like that, you probably still would be the person you are. Like you still would be successful. You think so? Because, yes, so I think this is where we disagree. I agree. I think so because, okay, I see like a lot of the characteristics in my husband, and he grew up in like a normal family. And I'm like, why do you have this drive? Like I tried to understand it, but I think that's just how he's wired, like we talked about. And the fact that you are so different than your other siblings, like, I don't know, I'm sure it played a role, but I just think that's just you as a person. So this is like the psychological nature versus nurture argument. Yeah. And it's I think there's no like actual science to it. It's like a thought experiment. And I think, yeah, it's very possible that some part of me is born with like a more of a drive or more of an instinct, like that monkey part of myself. And also there's other things with hormones, like men with higher testosterone are more likely to seek novel experiences. And also that makes effort and like work feel good. And so that would put you in a positive reinforcement loop to work hard and like seek and hunt and seek novel things. So yeah, hormones can play a balance into it, and you could be born with like a certain chemistry, but also if you're aware of that and you work on improving your hormones or making that better, like you can still that would relate back. Yeah, but then also at the same time, it's like the environment plays a huge role into it. Because if I grew up in a perfect family, I don't think that I would be who I am in any way, shape, or form. Yeah. So maybe it's both. You know, maybe it's both, but I definitely think environment is huge for sure. But it definitely could be both. Yeah, it's hard, a great answer. Hard to tell. Yeah, it is a hard question. Sorry, I'm always going behind. It's interesting because I just think about it. I'm like, I wonder, because you, like I said, you and your siblings all grew up in the same environment. Like, it's so interesting to me. Even I know birth order plays into that too, but just what makes somebody decide? You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So with my siblings, yeah, we all grew up in a very similar environment, but it was different because my older brother's 5 years older, and then the next one is 6, and my sister is like 7 or 8. And so they, like, my sister was a girl, so she was always doing her own thing because she was the oldest. And then my 2 brothers were like the 2 boys, like always doing things with their friend groups. And I was just kind of alone. I was just kind of left alone. So we did grow up in a similar environment, but it was a little bit different. I was definitely a lot lonelier than they were. Sense. And I don't know if that plays into it whatsoever. I don't know. But one thing I read, sorry, really quick, whenever you, it's kind of interesting. When you're an adult, it's been like scientifically proven, when you're going through something, your outlet and like how you respond to it is steeped into how like you were affected as a child. I was just going to say that. So for me, like when I'm upset, I need to be alone, but like I grew up alone. So it's like my husband doesn't understand it because he grew up with 4 siblings and they're very close. When I'm going through something, I'm like, I just need to be alone. And I explained it to him. I'm like, I was alone as a kid. That you, maybe this is, I don't know if it's just guys or girls too, but it's like you actively try to become the person that you would have felt safe around when you were a kid. So it's like, and I think about that, and I'm like, if I was a kid and I had current me, like as a big brother or a father even, that's such a weird thought experiment. You do that because subconsciously you're trying to heal your inner child, but you have to be emotionally mature enough and have a high enough EQ to be able to do that subconsciously, because not everybody can do that. And people who don't, like, if you can't do that introspective work and like talk yourself through things like you did, like, I'm angry with my mom, this is what I need to do. Some people can't do that. Like, they need to go to a therapist to tell them this is what you need to do. Well, yeah, I think everyone is capable of that, but I think that they don't know what they don't know. So until you get access to information, which I've been to therapy too, and I've thought about this because I've seen other people on the internet talk about it or whatever. You don't know what you don't know. So
once you figure out that this is kind of what you should do and why, and this is how you should go about it, I think every single person listening or watching
can do it
for sure.
That's true. That's a good point.
It's an intelligence thing. It's maybe a little bit of a maturity thing, but I think everyone's capable of it.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's certain mental health struggles that come with being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, definitely. You always, I mean, speaking for myself, you always feel like you're not enough, like you need to do more. Like, yeah, those for sure. There's a balance because there's a little bit of a toxic mindset, which is actually, it's bittersweet because it's good for you, but it's also, you need to keep it in check. And it's like, you're not doing enough, you're lazy, you need to work harder, you need to be better. And that mindset, having that mindset pushes you very, very far, but it also can like damage just like your overall life quality and happiness about yourself and etc. So it's like, it's good to an extent. You kind of have to keep a leash on it and let it like pull you in life, but not let it get to the point where where you hate yourself.
Yeah.
So
what's interesting is I feel like as an entrepreneur, you obviously surround yourself with successful people because that's just, I feel like what entrepreneurs do.
it's what we have in common, yeah.
Yeah. So then you kind of not in a way compare yourself to others. But I think the key is knowing who you are. Like if you know yourself, like whatever circle you're in, none of that is gonna like play. Obviously, yes, you'll feel like motivated, but you won't lose yourself as a person. Yeah. So I think that's important too.
Definitely. Comparing yourself to others is scary, but it also can be healthy. You could look up to and be inspired by your friends. And it's good. Like I had a friend of mine who he used to drop ship this product and then he turned it into a brand and it got big. They were doing like $300K a month in revenue. And then somebody stole from the company and the company went bankrupt and it was just a terrible situation. They thought it was all over. I thought it was like, dang, like that sucks. You had such a good thing going. They started it again. They did even better the second time. They got it up to like $500-600K a month. Now, last month they did 3.6 million. Wow. And they just got a deal with CVS that brought the valuation of their company up to $200 million.
Yeah, that's a true entrepreneur. When you lose everything and come back stronger, you gotta admire that.
And they're 27, 28. So wow. And they were all broke. And they're just I've known them for like 4 or 5 years. So like I knew them when they were like relatively broke, relatively like 50K net worth. So yeah, it's cool because I don't compare myself to these people, but these people inspire me.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I see how hard they work and I'm like, that's very inspiring. But yeah, it's also, it could be dangerous. So
yeah, I think if you're aware, you like prevent it. Yeah, a lot of people aren't really healthy and then they take that route and they become like very toxic in that thinking. So
so it seems like most problems come back to just finding out who you are and being very aware of yourself, and that more people should just spend time alone or reading or meditating or praying.
Which nobody, like our society doesn't want to be alone. Like we're like terrified to be alone with our thoughts. Yeah. That's why we are so buying into this hustle culture, because it's like, I just always need something to do. Like I can't even just sit there. I have to be, even if I'm just scrolling through something. And I mean, like you said, it's taking that time to do that. You know, inner work. And
if you have that issue, I would say delete all social media and don't watch any Netflix or shows. Definitely social media is the worst. Like what's going on right now in the world, just get it out of your mind.
All the influence.
I think it's great because like, let's take Instagram, for example. If you're on Instagram, like an hour a day, you follow 300 people. Most of them are friends, family. You're going to like see their stories, where they're going, who they're with, what they've done, like things, and you keep these pieces of information in your head, and they're always kind of there, even to the point where it's like if you run into that person 3 weeks later, you'd be like, oh, you were just in Mexico with blah blah blah, and you guys got that cool Airbnb, that was dope. It's like, why do you need to know that? Why does it matter? Like
it is crazy.
It lives in your head, and I know for myself, I definitely don't have space for that kind of crap. If something is truly truly important and I need my cousin to see it, I'll text him a picture or I'll call him. So I don't need this stuff living in my head. I got way too much going on. I'd rather read a book or like I would rather talk to my mom or do something. It's just, I like, it's just think about how much anxiety that probably like subconsciously, or like how much anxiety that causes you without even knowing, just having all of this information stored up in your head. Bro, like that sounds the opposite of peaceful. So
I think we're not wired for that either.
No, not even close. Not even close. You get more attention and more, it's incredible. So I just don't have any social media because I'm like, this sucks. I don't want to do it anymore. I've done it for 4 years and I was like, oh, holy crap, this sucks.
I know.
So
that's where my husband's at too. I'm like, you don't want to post. He's like, if I need something, I'll just call them. I'm like, you're so old. I'm like, you're so old fashioned. Like that's so, but no, it's true. I mean, whether you like it or not. I'm
like that with my girl. This is a little bit more controversial too, but like I wouldn't want my girlfriend scrolling on TikTok hours a day. I don't think that that's good for her. I don't think that information or what she sees on TikTok is going to be particularly good. I also don't want her posting every week on Instagram. Like these things are not important. So
that's a good way to look at it. Private for sure.
Yeah, I learned to be private with James. I'm like, you have 4 photos on your Instagram since
That's
2011.
James, that's so true.
Well, he's like, hey, can I post for our anniversary? And I was like, sure, why? He's like, I realized I never posted that we got married. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't care.
It's
like,
funny.
it's fine. He was like, no, I'll post it.
Whoever needs to know knows.
Yeah, it was just funny.
Yeah, exactly.
And then half his high school friends were like, bro, you're married? And I'm like, we've been married for 2 years.
That's funny.
I think it's actually a good sign, especially with a guy.
For sure.
They don't care about social media. I know when I was dating, it was such a turn off when guys would do these like very curated photos and edits.
That's fake. That's how you know it's fake.
How do you have time? And why do you care? It was such a turn off for me. I was like, this is not
And then what's sad is there's girls who are like, why can't you make this post like this husband made about this wife? But if you really know that relationship, it is so fake. Like he writes all this flowery stuff, but it's not real life.
She probably wrote it for him.
Maybe.
I don't know. I think it's healthy to just take, I'm even speaking to myself, to not let it influence you as much. I think being a girl is a little different on social media. Not that it's curated for us, but it's definitely more, especially like houses and just babies. And
it depends how you look at it. I look at it like that as inspiration, like just for
whatever. We're going to wrap up today's episode with the last 2 questions. First being, if you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
Oh man, that's a good question. This will probably change as I go through life, but I would like to be remembered as the guy that helped other guys become the best version of themselves. Not necessarily guys. I cater to guys just naturally more, but the guy that helped other people seek the absolute best version of themselves so that they could enjoy life to the fullest amount possible. Yeah. And especially men, I would say.
It's good.
That's really defines you as a person.
Yeah. And then the last question would be, if you could go back and give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
I would tell him that you're capable of way more than you think you are, and to never put any sort of limiting ceilings on what you believe about yourself, and that you can actually truly inspire and achieve anything that you can possibly think of. Like, you are extremely powerful as a person, and don't ever discount it. And that's what I'd give the advice to myself, but that's what I would give advice to other 18-year-olds as well. Because I think that I think all people have 100 times more energy and more power than they even know that they do.
Yeah.
And they just don't know that. And again, it's like the don't know what you don't know. So you're never going to step into those waters. But I'm telling you here and now that it's true. You're extremely capable of doing crazy things, no matter what it is. Even if you want to be the best piano player in the world or the fastest swimmer, like, you can get a lot further than you think you can. So that's what I would say.
We limit ourselves for sure.
Yeah, I would say just you can do anything. You're
so it's like a
powerful.
mindset change.
Yeah, just kind of, that's something I learned kind of getting older and like kind of seeing it, proving it to myself like in increments. But if I had my mindset now when I was 18, yeah, it'd be a lot different.
Yeah,
I'd be a lot further, like at least in finance terms.
Yeah,
so, but that's okay. I'm happy where I'm at.
Yeah, you always got to start somewhere.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
That's some great advice, Sebastian.
Thank you.
Thank you so much once again, Sebastian, for making time in your busy schedule to be on our episode. And thank you to all the listeners. We welcome all feedback on our social media platforms, as well as in our anonymous suggestion box. Just so you guys know, we're seeing all the feedback and we appreciate it. Please don't forget to subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube to keep up with any new episodes. And we'll see you guys back next Tuesday.